Welcome to Steve Allen's Comedy Room, where funny people gather just for laughs. Visiting us today, the comedy steamroller, Jack Carter. Character and stand-up comedian, Louis Nye. Individual comedy stylist, Dick Shawn. The Terry Gibbs Sextet. And now, your host, Steve Allen.
Well, sir. Hi, gang. We discovered years ago that very often audiences do not carefully attend to what announcers are screaming at the beginning of shows. I honestly did a survey on that. We had an announcer named Johnny Jacobs at the time, and I wrote the opening announcement one night, and I said, say this. It was all double talk. It's the Steve Krellman Show, starring Fabi Zabin and his climb. And he screamed all these words behind the opening theme, and we never got a single postcard saying, what was that again? And nobody in the audience ever asked, you know. So, therefore, because your marvelously enunciated introductions may not have been appreciated, I will explain that we are welcoming great comedians to this series of special shows called Comedy Room. Some of them may perform. Mostly we'll just sit around and talk about comedy and about their personal experiences. And so far we've been having a lot of fun with it, and I hope you will too. But the gentleman I've been talking to off camera is our announcer and sidekick, Mr. Joe Baker, great English comedian. Joe?
Thank you, sir.
You know, when American comedians do English military saluting shtick, they always vibrate the hand. Is that how it really is? I mean,
No,
they don't do that. Just in show business.
It's much friendlier now. It's like, hello, Fred. He says, hello, Charlie. That was the colonel, that was the private.
Ah, well, it takes all kinds. Anyway.
Can I tell a joke?
Oh, I wish you would, yes.
Please.
It's better than a recipe.
Well, I've never written a book about that, or exercising. There are some German people in tonight.
Yes, a lady from Heidelberg and a
Hamburg.
gentleman...
Hamburg, yeah? I've got a joke for you.
And a gentleman from Cologne, yes.
Cologne?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Zwei Hund. Ein Hund sagt mit der andere Hund, sitze schnell, da kommt der Hund mit der kalten Nase.
Anyway, today in our comedy room, we'll be visiting with four wonderful performers who have separate styles of comedy. You folks who know nothing whatever about comedy, you might think that if you're funny, you're funny. And in a sense, you're right. But 100 funny people are funny in 100 different ways. First, we have a funny man who can overwhelm audiences with rapid-fire material. He works with a machine gun. No, he's a true veteran. Broadway, nightclubs, his own television variety comedy program, motion pictures. He can even draw caricature sketches at a party for you. And as soon as I get my mouth fixed, I plan to interview him. Mr. Jack Carter, here he is. Make yourself comfortable, Jack. I'll be right over there.
Yeah.
Back when I was getting ready to construct the first Tonight Show for NBC, I happened to run into this next gentleman in front of an elevator in the NBC building. I had seen him doing something funny on a local show, and I said, Louis, I have seen you on that show you've been doing, and I think you're terrific. And I'll be starting a new program soon, and if you'd like to be part of it, it would be my great pleasure to have you join us. Well, it worked out okay. And we've worked together very often over the last 30 years, starting with the original Tonight Show. Welcome, Mr. Louis Nye. Here he is. Another wonderful comedian. Our next guest has written and stars in a delightful and quite unusual one-man show called The Second Greatest Entertainer in the World. Makes you sort of think right away, doesn't it? Who's the first? Well, we'll have to ask him that when he comes in. I remember back, well, who cares how many years ago, But when Judy Holliday was still with us, very funny woman, she and I and Dick Shawn were booked to appear on one of the big NBC specials produced by Max Liebman, who used to work with Sid Caesar. And I do work clubs, and I have an act of sorts, but basically what I do is just show up and try to funny it up in whatever ways occur to me. But some people in the business have marvelous acts. They're constructed like cathedrals. They're architectural in their strength. And Judy also just was funny, you know, in an acting context. She didn't have an act. So we were at rehearsal the first day, and we were reading what's in the script, and suddenly they said, okay, let's rehearse the Dick Shawn spot. And Dick got up and did a couple of his routines, and Judy and I turned to each other and almost simultaneously said, would this be the right time, do you think, to get out of show business? We didn't see how we could compete with what we had just witnessed. One of the funny original comedians, Mr. Dick Shawn. Here he is. Let's all go over here. Stick.
Anyone for orange slush?
Come in, Dick.
I'm sorry, Steve. I need a much higher ceiling, obviously.
That's all right. We'll try. Can we bring in the other ceiling for Mr. Shawn, please? Well, you know what occurs to me now? We didn't plan it this way. Whoever was in town, showed up, and we got 3 sharkers, as we say. But it occurs to me that one thing you 3 have in common, outside of marvelous originality and funniness, is you all do dialects. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing Danny Kaye in one of his old movies, a great dialectician too. When I was about 19, I saw him, and what impressed me, a lot of people could do dialects, we can all do them a little bit. But when Danny Kaye does, let's say, a Scotsman, something happens in his face. He looks like a Scotsman. Louis, when you do a German or an Arab or an Irish, you change your face. It's not just a rich little job, you know?
No.
Do you do that consciously?
No, I think it's because if I was saying, an Sekt mit das Krudenbeine, das zweimal Rappenpeizer.
I would join that club.
Something happens to your face.
Yes.
That was
Now,
double talk.
We
That
have a
wasn't
lovely
time.
lady from Heidelberg. Did he look at all German to you, ma'am? Be honest now, when he did that.
Sag ja.
Yes.
Danke, Fräulein.
Yeah?
She thought you were very convincing.
Yes, of course.
I did a little research, Lou.
Did you?
Yes, and from your wife, I picked up this card. It's really too small.
It's
We can
tiny.
get some kind of a shot of it, I guess. That was a shot of Dick Shawn's hair coming into the picture. But what we have here is a little card. There it is. And Louis and I used to carry these, and I suppose pass them around New York?
Yes, all the producers, radio producers
Yes.
had those.
This was back in, you look like a mere stripling.
Yes, I
But we
was-
don't do that on the show.
No.
So, I'll be right out. You were roughly how old at this time?
Oh, I was like
28?
19, 27, 28. No, much less than that. I was a young
A young
boy.
whippersnapper.
Yeah,
All right,
fresh
fine.
out of high school.
Good. And here's the dialects you do. Mexican, Indian, Canuck, Brooklyn, Negro, it says, New England, rural, southern, tough, English. Well, it'd take 20 minutes to read them all.
I know.
Many.
But it kept me working.
Too tough English.
Yes.
I used to do, there was a show that I did, it was called Strange as It Seems.
A serious show.
A serious show, and they used to have a background of drums in Africa. They used to do stories about Africa. And the announcer would come out and he'd say, the story of Andre Christophe, black dictator of Haiti. Mama na 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 ni na 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 eh. Mama mama na na na. And that would go through. And then they had an Englishman
And that
on the
was you
cab.
doing that.
That was me doing that,
Put him
yeah.
out.
Went on for a long time. Then they'd have an English person would be standing by, and I would read.
Mm-hmm.
I would, on the script it would say, speaks to chief.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, "Gonana e sumoko yoto kanana." Then the Englishman would say,
What the chief is saying is that the gold is 4.5 miles from here.
and then the Englishman would talk to the African. He'd say, "Mananga esete in tombakata." And the old chief would say,
He says to go west rather than east.
and that would go on.
I can see why they call that strangers at sea. Right.
So that's
Excuse me, which one was the Englishman?
Come on now.
a tall,
The one with the
slender
cold nose.
Oh, yes.
Come on. Oh, Jack Carter, we mentioned all you guys, all four of you, Joe too, do marvelous dialects.
Yes.
And now, is this something you pick up in your childhood? You hear
Now we're sort of fall right into it, you know. Yes. And then we've got a lot of cockneys out here, right? And Joe and all, it's it. I've always, even as a child, I've done, but I speak a lot of the languages. I learned French and Spanish when I was a kid.
At the same time?
And at the same time, it's not easy. I was a maid and a butler at the same time. And Italian from a neighborhood I moved into when I was about 11. My father spoke the languages. You spoke them out of necessity. You know, if you didn't speak the language, you didn't sell anything in Brooklyn. If you had a candy store, and it was all a Sicilian neighborhood. So I spoke them all. The toughest thing is later when I got into television, you know, like I watch Sid Caesar doing double talk. It's tougher to do double talk in a language when you can't speak the language.
When you can.
When you can.
Okay.
When you can speak French, you can go, je l'ai pas dans horreur, avec la cloison de les murs, ils sont contents. But you want to say words which don't come out as funny in a dialect, you know? I just did a dinner where we honored Sid Caesar, and he was the Russian pilot that did something terrible, and I played a Russian too. And Sid can double talk Russian, knowing no words, better than I can knowing a lot of Russian. It's because my father was Russian.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's...
I find that it's the sound that's important in double talk.
Sound and key words will do it.
And well,
The pitch of the voice.
I'll do a Russian now. I see. And see if you can follow what I'm doing.
Just before you start, Dick, do you do a Russian dialect of any kind?
No, I don't do any dialect.
You don't?
You do.
Well, then, we won't be requiring your services for the rest of the day.
No, I do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. No, come on. Why do I think I've...
was
No, but the thing
Why do I think I've heard you do dialects?
No, I do like rock and roll, talk a chico, lip out, wow. But that's not a dialect, that's just like a state of mind.
Yeah.
But the thing I noticed about Louis and Jack, when they do that, you say you're supposed to take on, they both look Jewish when they did everything. Jewish Russian, Jewish Indian,
Jewish Negro,
Jewish
Shawn of y'all. You to Emma's, you mother.
Love it, showbiz.
Okay, Lou, I interrupted you. You're just about to do a Russian.
All right. This is sound, but I'll add a few words so you can follow the story. Rozdíl stratovající bronila krondo istrakiel lakmraniste operation. Kratil stromeni kradi pradi sronio. Torkiel te daktor poroni satiere tora snipov. Oh, nice. Now, so. Bromniačti kradil da stroni, bromniačti takela, bromniačti. This feels nice now.
Yes.
That's great.
Thank you. You know, Lou, there's one character that you did. We probably only did it about 14 times over the years, and yet to this day, when I walk down the street, people often yell, "Hi-ho, Steve Arena," because of your Gordon Hathaway character. We used to do a routine based on something that is still a prominent journalistic feature in newspapers all over the world. There's some big issue of the day. Should we or not nuke Cleveland, or whatever the question might be, you know? And then they send an inquiring reporter, as they say, out with a photographer. They take close-ups of 5 guys, and they say, yes, we should, and I'll tell you why, or no, we should not. And they print their opinion. So we did a satire on that many years ago called Man on the Street. And we always opened with Louis as Gordon Hathaway. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, just for the young people that might not have seen it, do we have a little bit of that on film or tape? Let's just roll a few seconds of Gordon Hathaway for old time's sake, and I want to ask you a question about it.
Well, since one of the big news fields of interest of the day is the elections, we're returning to that subject now. Pre-election statistics show that this year a greater percentage of women will be voting than ever before, you may know. And this brings up a familiar and old question, will there ever be a woman president? Well, it's a pretty good question, and I thought you might like to see what would happen if we survey the man on the street on this particular point, see how he feels about it. We have our remote camera outside in the street, and I think we have our first man all lined up out there. Yes, there he is. What is your name, sir?
What's that?
I say, what's your name?
My name's Gordon Hathaway. I'm from Manhattan, and I'm a real estate agent. Hi-ho, Stefano.
Tell me, sir, very friendly, how do you feel about having a woman in the White House?
A woman prez. Well, you certainly ask dandy questions, Steve. Well, now, let me see. I don't think I really know. That is a rugged Daruno question. Just don't have an answer ready for that, I'm afraid.
Perhaps I could make it concrete for you. What if, say, Marilyn Monroe were in the White House? What would you say to that?
Take me to your president.
Now, Lou, I've never asked you this. I've asked you to do Gordon many times, but I have been told that in time you grew sick of that characterization. Did you?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I would meet different people and get jobs from them, and their only reference to me was that character.
And you did a million other things.
That's right.
Yes.
So it used to just hurt me so much. So I didn't do it in a nightclub ever.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have made sense because you have to have somebody interview
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Have you been working since?
Now, just a moment, Joe. Yes. Dick, I want to talk for a moment about your marvelous show. I'd say it's marvelous anyway, but I know it is because I saw it and laughed my head off. Second greatest entertainer in the world.
Whole wide world.
The whole wide world, thank you. I stand corrected, and I'm wearing orthopedic shoes. But anyway, critics gave it all kinds of very well-deserved awards. Is there any one description you would apply to the material that comprises the script of that show, or is it...
Well, it's an accumulation of frustrations, actually. The reason I put that together was you work clubs after a while, you knock your head at Jack knows this, you travel, you get tired of it. Louis gets tired of the character, you get tired of working clubs. So you say, I want to try with a theater audience. So you put basically your things, and then out of frustration mostly. And people always ask me, who is the greatest entertainer in the whole wide world? I always say, if you're a religious person, obviously it's God. He is, without a doubt, the greatest. And if you're an atheist, it's Sammy Davis Jr. But that just came out of a frustration, and there was a frustrating guy who didn't think he's funny anymore. And within it, I worked a kind of social commentary that you can do, you can't do in clubs. But that's about as funny as my answer will be.
That's kind of an answer I wanted.
Strong.
I'm going to put a question very quickly to all four of you guys, if I may. Joe, we'll start with you. At what age, if you can be specific, did you realize that you were getting more laughs than the other, 9-year-old kids or however old you might have been? When you found out you were personally unusually funny?
15.
15. What about you, Dick?
Last week. I suddenly listened to an audience. No, it came about, I think, during school.
High school?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's part of the thing of all of us have this inhibition that we parry off things that make us tense, so we make a joke about it. Then I realized there was a good way to exist, and later in that you find a way to make a living at it.
What about
But
you?
I think about 18.
18, and
Yeah.
Jack?
When I was born, my father looked at me and he laughed. Put it back, it's not done, hold it. It was annoying to me, because I was in school. I was in like junior high school or elementary school, and I was suddenly doing funny voices and impressions on the table in my father's candy store,
Really?
which was oriented by vaudeville people in Brighton Beach, Coney Island. And suddenly I resented that. The only reason I felt I was invited anywhere was to get up and do impressions and get laughs.
I see.
And do, Jimmy Durante or whatever you did those days.
What about you, Lou? What age did you realize you were funny?
I think it was about 12 I started getting interested in it, and the reason for that was we had such tall young people on our block in Hartford, Connecticut.
Taller than you.
Big people. And they say, hey, I used to be called Chicken because of slenderness. And they come over and say, hey, how you today? Hey, Louie. And I'd get belted.
Yeah, bullies.
But if I got there before they hit me,
With a joke.
and I would do something, then it was all
they
forgiven.
loved you.
It was a matter of survival.
Which relates to an interesting question. I'm probably the 912th, certainly not the first, to observe that, at least in the context of the West, United States, Canada, Western European nations, three groups that are funny to a sort of a statistically disproportionate degree are the Jews, the Irish, and the blacks. That's not to say there aren't funny, Frenchmen, and we know that. But statistically, I don't know what is the percentage of Jews in this country? Let's say 10%, but at living, may not be that. Well, if you check who all the great comedians are and the great comedy writers, now we're talking maybe 70% Jewish, right? Something like that. So the question is now why? Why so many funny Jews, funny blacks, and funny Irish? I have some theories. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's the heritage of having to make do with something to avoid something else. Like many, many years ago, when the Jews were driven out of the cities, they were in the fields originally. They were farmers and shepherds.
In Europe.
In Europe, in the ancient times, in the tribes of the Aramaic and the Babylonian. So then their fields and flock were taken away. So they were driven into the cities where they were told you can't be this, and that. So they had to become either money lenders or professionals, someone who could learn to cure people, which evolved into doctors, businessmen, men of that profession. For the same reason, if you don't want to get beat up, you become a funny guy. You clown, you become the clown, and then they don't say you're just skinny or you got a big nose or whatever. So it's a battle to survive.
I remember as a child, my parents, most of the Jewish parents, discouraged the Jewish boy from becoming an athlete.
Really?
And they wanted to develop their brain. And I think one of the reasons the minorities, especially the Jew, if you didn't want to go to school and get an education, you had to live by your wits. It seems like every minority group has to live by their brain. And they discourage you as a kid. You don't find many Jewish athletes for that reason. And I wanted to be an athlete, but I couldn't understand why I couldn't run. I couldn't run as fast as the other ones. And then I realized it was the food they gave me as a kid. As a kid, I'm eating matzo balls, stuffed chicken, liver, grease, all this grease. And as a kid, I said, I want to be a baseball player. And then I tried to run. I couldn't move. Wait, I couldn't understand it. Then I realized it was the diet. So then if I didn't want to go to school, which I didn't, I was bored with any kind of learning, you become a comic. And that's why the comedians were the first ones who ever worked. The Gentile comedian came in after the Jewish comic came on first. They were the first ones to do it. Milton Berle's, Sid Caesar's, all your television people.
Well, way back, the German dialect comedians, Weber and Fields and Louis Mann and
right, and
Bert Lahr, the old burlesque.
So the Jew had a good mind, and he knew he had to survive. You survive not from your muscle, but from the brain. So as Louis says, nobody hits you if you make them laugh.
Black people, I think, are just amazing because
so many great black comedians now the last 15 years.
But even before that, their use of the language, they have flowered the language to make it so wonderful. There's a poetry. I remember a guy in Mr. Kelly's, remember playing Mr. Kelly's in Chicago, who was one of the chefs, would come over to me and he would, to show me that he liked what happened tonight. I was on a Saturday night. He'd say,
black chef?
Yeah, black chef would say, fine goings on that stage, baby. That meant fine things going on that stage. And the word baby is affectionate, Fine things going on that stage, baby. And it'd be chopping liver or something like that. But it's to the point, it's very direct, and it's strong, and it has a good sound.
I remember once, some years ago, I was in San Francisco. I happened to be going to some interview or something, early Sunday morning. Very few people on the streets. And there was a black man with a shoe shine stand, which you don't see much anymore. But anyway, there he was. And his head was down like this, and I was just walking by. I didn't need a shine and stuff, but apparently he thought differently. I didn't even know he was paying any attention, but I was the only soul on that street besides him. And about 7:30 Sunday morning, and as I passed him, suddenly I hear this soft, beautiful voice say to me, and I don't even think he looked up. He said, "Say, man, why don't you let me put a glaze on them skates for you?" I never forgot that line. It's poetry.
A glaze.
A glaze on them skates.
Yeah.
But again, now there'll be Mexican, Puerto Rican comedians coming up. It's always the poorer boys who, starting with Chaplin, who's obviously number one, who set the whole pattern. He came from a very, very lower steel mine kind of town.
Was there ever a comedian born rich? I don't think so.
No, you can't be. It's like fighters. You can't be. You can't hit hard unless you're hungry.
Interesting point.
Bob Hope was born rich.
No, he came up
found
with
more
it.
later. He owns half of California.
Dick, to get back to you.
How do you do this, Bob Ridgehoe?
Get back to your point about wanting to be an athlete. You, in a sense, are, what do I mean in a sense? You are very athletic. You're physically strong, and you play ball and stuff.
Well, as a kid, that was my whole thing. I love athletics. I loved, I thought I was going to be a ball player.
Yeah.
It's not known I was a professional. I thought I was going to be a pro, and then I got drafted in the service as a pitcher. I played American Legion ball and all that. But then I went naturally to the comedy, because when I got out of the service, I realized it was just baseball has no future. But
that's why there's a naturalness when you do comedy with athletics.
I use my body that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Could you show us a couple of seconds
Okay.
of that,
Well,
the
there's
picture
a routine that I did about 15 years ago when the Brooklyn Dodgers were moving to Hollywood. And I loved the Dodgers because they were rugged, tough guys. And then when they moved to Hollywood, I said, something's going to happen to them. And something's going to happen to all the athletes. They're going to become too sensitive. Show business. These guys now, $1 million contracts, long hair, they look like actors. And something is missing. Anyway, I'd like to show you what a baseball pitcher will look like in about 10 or 15 years, walking out to the mound at a very crucial moment. Baseball pitcher of the future. I did that 15, 18 years ago, and I think it's more apropos now with the athletes becoming much more sensitive.
In your case, many of your funniest routines, it seems to me, because you and I work together in ad-lib situations and more formal situations too, and much of your best stuff, it seems to me, grows out of something you are really feeling at the moment.
I don't do
not just
jokes.
12 grade jokes in a tuxedo, you know.
I can't do jokes. It's not part of my physical makeup.
Right.
But I studied dance when I was a kid in the business and whatnot, and utilized my athletic feelings. So when I do the rock things or whatever, it's usually in my body.
Wait a minute. He's talking to me and you're answering. You're kidding. Yeah. I'm telling you, Dick, he's talking to me and you're answering. I'm telling you. He's talking to me.
I'm sorry.
And I'm getting ready and you're
I'm
Now I'm
sorry.
wondering, he's glazed. He's going
No.
He's hoping somebody will say something.
He's cross-eyed.
The glasses get thicker as the years
Steve, I
pass.
swear you were looking at me.
That's
Lou, answer quick for me.
No, that's
Maybe he was talking to Lou all
well,
the time.
it's the same question really could go to all of you. Jack, in your case, don't you get your best thing? Why is my hand up in the air like this?
You're improvising.
I'm making tap.
You're trying to. You're mixing a souffle.
Yes.
I think
You want to
it's-
interrupt Jack also? Go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Jack. You know I never do.
I
I've
think...
had this plate in my head for years. With the war. You bang it. Doctor.
Come on. Stick. Coca-tuka, stick.
I think everybody...
I've heard of a filling. John the Baptist. One chapter.
King Kong.
I think every the spirit of ad-libby when you're doing something is unavoidable because it comes into your heart and soul at that particular moment where you are going so good and you may never recapture what you did that night. It's just gone. And you'll get a review if it happens to be an opening night and they'll say, did a marvelous thing about so-and-so and so-and-so. You pick up the paper and said, when? When did I do that?
You can't remember it.
You can't remember it.
Do it again, yeah.
I thought it was only me, but I found that it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, Jack, would you...
Now me.
Would you care to vouchsafe an answer to this question?
Vouchsafe. I have a vouchsafe. Actually, you discover most things on stage. When it might come from a story, you heard a new story, and that'll spark you into another story. And before you know it, Steve, you're into an area, and it becomes 6 or 7 good minutes.
I think in your case, you are, to me, you're always funny, but you're at your funniest when you are honestly a little bit bugged, sometimes very bugged about something.
Greatest
The
angry
lights
man.
are terrible.
There is only one guy angrier than I, but he's very commercial with it, is Alan King. Is a dynamite, what we call, somebody once said you're the jack of all tirades.
But in Alan's case, brilliant as he is, his are more constructed, rehearsed.
Yeah, they're very constructed.
routines.
I get angry on the spot.
Yeah.
If I get a bad introduction, I'm home free.
Yeah.
A lot of times we do club dates, and they're awful. A club date, folks, is a one-nighter where you walk in, and it's the Association of Liquor Distributors of Upper Oshkosh who are honoring the grocery buyers, and you don't know where it's... And they tell you, use Charlie Blinman's name, say Harry Rimshaw, and they'll scream. And you go out, and you're in Denver or Des Moines somewhere. You're all alone by yourself. You come down to this ballroom with a nickel microphone, a 2-cent speaker, and they're paying you thousands, and you know you're going to die.
Can't be heard.
And the front table has got the back to you, and they're drunk. And here he is, bad. You come out, hi, Harry Rimshaw, death. And with the liquor distributor, and he plays golf bad, nothing, you know. Now you're on your own. But the best thing is when I get a bad introduction, or something terrible happens, or there's a funny speaker on who's boring, is on for hours. When I can come out and relate to that and do that, you get a start with the audience. You need a grabber.
It's pure gold.
You need a grabber, and it's just gold.
And then they know you're
or
not
a
living.
bad act before you can say, I don't book them, I only follow them, you know. How about that act? Did you ever see a girl in the dress and what? Something to work on, you know, because I cannot do an act. I never have been able to go out and do ABC like an Alan King. I wish I could. And I was analyzed for a while, and the analyst says, why don't you go out and do a set act? Wouldn't it be easier? I said, no. And the analyst says, what you like is planned chaos. Huh?
Yeah.
You like trouble.
Yeah.
You like to go out and not know what's going to be next because you think that's going to be funny to an audience.
Right.
But you make a tough game tougher.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I once did organize an act at the Copa, and I had the 4 best boring weeks I ever had. But it worked. I went out, good evening, A, B, C, D, humor, G, E, F. And it was, I never sweated like I know. Usually I pour, I'm pulling my hair, I'm ripping, you know. I don't go by plane, I pull myself to the next town, you know. I sit here and I make rugs in Jan Murray's house, you know. I pulled, you notice one sideburn, this one I pulled out, no. But I never was able to do an act like Dick does. I always wanted to do things that are away from show business. A ball player, a thing like Louis does. I always was a showbiz child. I was born in show business with Al Jolson's and Durante's in my father's candy store, Brighton Beach Theater. Doing songs about show business. I did impressions first, so someone said, once you start talking about yourself, me, the I was in the streets. And it happened when I had my son, Michael. First routine I did away from show business was the birth of my son, going to the hospital, picking him up. And a lot of them were stock jokes, but it became... And I've heard people using my job. Bill Cosby, I heard yesterday, doing that thing. Put it back. It's not done yet. Put it back in the oven, you know. I remember, and Joan Rivers does that. I did it first. I know I did. Because it was 17 years ago my son was born.
You know, that could be a whole interesting theme for at least 1 hour of these shows, people doing other people's material. It's much more common than the public realizes.
Seriously, so I've kind of run the gamut. I did my son when he was born. I did it for quite a few years. Then I got bored with it. And now I've been doing a lot of stuff on my mother. So I've really I've really run the, what do you call
somehow
it?
I think you feel that your mother is partly responsible for your own funniness, right?
Well, there was no one showbiz in my family. Not my sisters, not my father, certainly. But my mother used to do impressions in the candy store. She'd do like Mae West, and she'd do Liney Barrymore. Liney.
She did Lionel
And she did Mae West. Liney Barrymore. And she'd go, yeah. Go and eat your dinner, crazy boy, you know. But she'd go, hot stuff. Come up and see me sometime, sweetheart. So she was then she got on the Merv Griffin show. She got on the mothers. They had that thing, all the mothers. I didn't know she was going on. They said, we sent for your mother. To do what? To cook? What's she gonna do? Make chicken soup for Merv? She called him Merv Gribbinus. You know what that means?
What?
Gribbinus is chicken fat renderings.
That's funny.
He's always called them Merv Gribbinus. Gribbinus are the rinded pieces of fat you get when you make chicken.
Or the fattened pieces of rind.
Rind your fat pieces.
Cooked with onion.
It's kosher bacon is what it is.
Greasy Griffin.
She went on and she did the Merv Griffin show with 3 boring mothers.
Yes.
I mean, you're not going to get too many laughs out of Lucille Ball's mother was then maybe 94, and it was practically mummified, you know? Lucy's a good lady. Lucy's okay. That's all she said I'm going to say. Lucy's all right. David Jansen's mother and Jack Jones' mother, who's a nice lady, Irene Hervey, but very quiet. And Merv is sweating, going into the ground, and he says, I got to get some help. Mrs. Chakrin. My mother was in the toilet, see? Literally, my mother was always in the bathroom. She says, I'm in the bathroom. I can't come out. Come on, Ma, I introduced you. I'm in the green room with her. She says, Ma, I introduced you. I'm not supposed to be on yet. What do you know if I'm not supposed to be? Get out there. So she ran out like this with the bloomers down, half out like this. Now, she gets on camera, and and says, I got to go back. I forgot my scarf. And she runs off. So quickly, I got in 5 lines so I should get paid. She came back and Merv says, what's with the scarf? She says, she put it here, she says, what then? Everybody should look up? Because my mother, like all elderly women, as Marvin Cohn would say, lovely Jewish lady, an Italian, an Irish woman, all sit with their legs open.
Yes.
Old women. At age 70, they automatically just pop open. What? Stays like that the rest of their life. You gotta see here. I think they start out this way. You look at an audience like this, or across, but as the sugar's on,
They forget because it doesn't matter anymore.
Says, I've seen some weird bloomers in my day. And God bless her, she sits like that and walks like that, too. And I've built a whole routine out of the things she said.
Yeah, funniness often does run in families. Either there is actual funniness, as in the case of your family, or in the case of Jonathan Winter's family, the family people are so square that Jonathan got funny by bouncing off their squareness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Again, I think the funniest performers, the performers with the most sort of real humor, as distinguished again from just 19 great jokes in a row, are the people who have had that experience in their lives.
Yeah.
Lou, to return to you,
Yeah.
there's a prank or stunt or whatever I've been playing on you for about 30 years.
Yeah.
So obviously you know I've done it before.
Yes, of course.
But what we used to do on the old shows, and I've taken the forethought,
Yeah.
the malice of forethought, to do it again. I have behind here, you don't even know this, but now we all will, some hats. And if I
good
may,
Lord.
I'm going to put the hats on your head and see what that suggests to you in the way of characters, all right?
All right.
I don't even know what hats we have here. All right, here's one for my office. There you are. Captain, what of the night?
Several of the Legionnaires are completely wiped out, as I might say, completely dead. Aeschylus is still here. Pericles is still here. And I hope they'll be with us. I'm going to bed. Good night.
Thank you, Lord. All right, let me see what we have here, just at random. There you are.
You know something? If you find the gold in the Kupapi Mountains, it's not going to be there because other people have taken it away. The natives there are quite jolly and will eat one. They think everyone's pork.
It's a little Russian, but do whatever you want.
Бродил стративается бронёло кронью. Ты смотри, тратфаци, брочил страмы, music нате. Просто есть на доброй власти, на доброй саде на
We have here sitting on the sofa four eminently successful comedians. They've all been very successful for a long number of years. And when people are successful, whether they're politicians or football players or whatever they are, clergymen, doesn't matter, there is the assumption or illusion when you observe them that it must have been pretty successful for them all the time. You know, maybe a few tough weeks getting started and then it was all peaches and cream. But as we all know, that is not the case in show business, even for superstars. You check anybody's career, biggest stars in the world, it's all been like this. It's not been right at the top of the heap forever. Let's talk for a moment, if we may, about terrible experiences. We've all had nights when we bombed, as the saying goes, engagements that were disastrous. Jack mentioned one a moment ago, working with bad audio equipment in some dumb place where you don't even know what you're doing. Dick, Shawn, to the extent that anything comes back to your mind, have you ever worked in some terrible clubs or had awful nights or awful audiences?
Once I did a barrel roll in a theater on the Round doing Once in Love with Amy, and I went right into the pit. And it was a dark, and the spotlight looking around, and they couldn't find me. But like a pit like that, One in Love with Amy. Then I did this roll, ta-da, and I did my dance, and there was the pit, and it went right down about 10 feet, and the spotlight kept going around, and it was like a magic act. I was looking around, and then I pulled myself up, yoo-hoo, I'm there, and they pulled me out, and that was the end of that. My pills were here all over.
I bled too once.
You hurt yourself while performing?
Yeah. There was an entrance in a place on top of an airport in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to walk through the audience to get to the stage. And a guy grabbed me, big beefy guy, like this. He said,
I want you to say hello to my wife. She's coming out. She's in the John. She'll be right out.
You were just on your way on stage?
no, I was getting ready for it. Just, you know,
Yeah,
and the
pretty
band was getting ready and all that. And I'm standing by waiting. The woman comes out. Oh, and he tells me, he says, she is so crazy about you. When she sees you, she'll go crazy. The woman comes out, I swear to God, she doesn't know me from Adam. She doesn't know me. So he gets angry at her. He says,
wooing eye from the TV, sweetheart. Come on. Gee, give her a little kiss.
So like a fool, I lean over to kiss her on the cheek, smiling a lot. She's got 2 earrings hanging down. The earrings are made out of this kind of material. Metal. And they're like a little gondola. And there's a little man in the gondola with an oar.
Sharp points.
Sharp points, an oar. And he's, you know, the minute you turn your head or something, the guy goes, you know, he's on the boat with the boat, see? As I turned to kiss her on the cheek because of the command of the guy, he was much bigger than I was, frightened me out of it. She, out of fear and fright for this stranger to do such a terrible thing, turned her head like that. Ooh. And the boat and the oar and the whole thing landed right in there. I was so nervous that I didn't know where it went. I thought it was on the floor, so I kept going. Oh, geez. Yeah, and I hear, and here he is all the way from Hollywood, Louis Nye! Walking down the stage. I finally take out, and the oar is already turned.
It was in your mouth.
Yeah, and I said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Drip, 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 all over like that.
And you went through a whole show bleeding like
Went
that?
through a whole show like that. One woman, a very stout woman, who was waiting so long for the show, her hair was all down like that. And she leaned over to give me a napkin. She leaned over to give me a napkin. See?
Yeah.
So I take the napkin. She says, dry yourself off, sweetheart. But she gets up. All this body gets up there to do this, you know. She gives me, as she does that, she leans over to kiss me on the other cheek. And the hair over here is so stiff because it's got all that, what do you call it out?
Spray.
The spray. It's got spray out there.
Egg white.
So I'm dying for friends there this night. And she turned her head as she sat down like, I know what to do, poor guy. And as she turns like that, and he gets me right in the eye. So now I got blood coming out here, dropping, and I'm doing eye stick all over the place. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm right here to the theater tonight. And I just ended up in tears. It was one of the rottenest nights I've ever had in my life.
Oh, yeah. You know, that reminds me of another one of my favorite funny men, comedian John Biner. He would like to be with us, but he's doing a show in Canada right now and can't make it. He told me a true story once. It's not funny as a joke. It's only funny because it was true, of one of those disastrous nights when nothing was working for him. And as you guys were saying earlier, a lot of comedians get into the business by first doing impressions, then gradually they get a little funnier, do fewer impressions. And he finished his act in those days, and sometimes still does, with musical impressions, as if Jimmy Cagney were singing What Kind of Fool Am I, or, you know, that kind of an old idea, but he does it very well. And the first impression he did was Johnny Mathis doing Chances Are. So anyway, he was on doing his jokes and his regular stand-up. It was a terrible club somewhere near New York. Tough audience, rude. They never shut up at any time. He was getting literally no laughs. And he was getting heckled and, get off, you bum, you stink, get out of, you know, that, no encouragement, nothing but suffering this night. So he just arbitrarily decided to cut about 15 minutes of his act and get off as fast as he could. He turned to the band leader and he said, the musical impression, start with Johnny Mathis. So he said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give you my impression, so for some of your favorite vocalists. And first of all, you know who this is, Johnny Mathis. Now he turns away, goes like this, the band starts to play. And he starts to sing, Chances Are, and as he turns around, the audience has gotten up and is dancing. True story. Anyway, that's how that. Dick availed himself, as we say, of our stage. Why don't you jump up and
In the veiling area?
In the veiling area.
Well, I thought you'd never ask.
Yes.
Excuse me, then. It's Doc. Yeah.
Jack Congress, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, and I don't even do Jack Benny. You know? I was talking about my mother. I recently moved her to California because my dad was gone. He didn't pass away. He was hiding from this crazy woman. Because little ladies like to dance with other women, so when she couldn't get one, she pushed him half away across Florida. He is now hiding in the Okeechobee swamp somewhere. So I said, Ma, you'll come to California? She says, why not? I hate it here, all old people. So I went to Florida, and I helped her move and close up an apartment, which is tough, because old people, they won't give up the ketchup bottles, 2 eggs she had in a dish. And they always travel with a cardboard box and a rope around it, right? And I said, we'll fly, we'll go. I wouldn't fly. Papa didn't fly. I let him drop dead with the planes. I said, all right, Ma, I'm coming to Florida. I'll buy 2 tickets. I'll sit right in the plane with you. And my mother, may I swear to, honestly, she said this, all right, with you I'll go, because you go every place and you come home, so you must get there. I said, but nice luggage. Don't embarrass me schlepping the garbage with the junk, with the filthy boxes, with the newspapers, with the television under the arm, you know. Nice, we're going to go. I'm a big star. So I gave her $200, go to Saks, Burdines, buy nice luggage. Picked her up the next day, and there she was with a beautiful matching set of shopping bags. With a dead chicken hanging out of one. And she had the stewardess cleaning a fish going on the runway. Shoving the scales. We got on, we're up in the air, 2 minutes, she's frightened, never flew, the white knuckles, and she says, I want to get off, too late, we're up, then I'll go to the toilet, I'll do, I don't know what, and the plane, my luck, took one of those, and suddenly over Tampa, like we hit an air pocket and dropped 20,000 feet, and the pilot come on the microphone, and one of those humorous statements, well, see what I did. Some guy in the back of the plane says, you better come back here and see what I did. I tore out the armrest and everything. Finally, we're up there, and my mother sees them serving. She says, I'll help out. I said, Mom, will you sit quiet? Don't be a Jewish mother. The stewardesses know what they're doing. She says, never mind. When they bend over, you see everything. Because they wear those little minis, you know, and they come up, would you like your lunch now? So she grabbed a little, and she's going, anybody want a cocktail? Anybody want a highball? She woke up a man. Mister, you want a drink? He said, my God, we've been hijacked to Israel. So I have her here in sunny California, and she hates it. She hates everything. She's really me, you know. She's terrible, bad, awful. I don't need it. I don't want a mink coat. Short would be nice. You know. Yeah, and she pulled the greatest line. It's called guilt. We all have the guilt. Sons have the guilt. So I do everything. Every day, a podiatrist, a doctor here. I'm dragging her to UCLA. Things she doesn't need. Doctors she never heard of. Somebody will say, I had an upper GI. I want an upper, and I'll take a lower. And a medium GI. She had the whole thing, didn't need it. The other day, she had everything. Everything. A heart, the kidney, the liver, the breast, the knees. Everything was checked. The stomach, the valves. Everything was, her eyes were marvelous. She passed every test. I said, that's wonderful, Ma. She says, yeah. At least now if I die, I know it'll be sudden. They never let you off the hook, those mothers. But I found a little collection of senior citizen stories. They work us. We work senior citizens mostly now. Because that's all that owns all the money, has the resorts, they own the condominiums. A nice elderly crowd, like here now. And so the 3 men are sitting in front of my mother's place, and this beautiful busty nurse went by. One says, oh, I'd like to give her a kiss. Second guy said, I'd like to give her a kiss and a hug. Third old guy said, I'd like to give her a kiss and a hug. And what's that other thing we used to do? Here's my favorite. Steve, this is my favorite, and you won't laugh, because it's inside humor. The 2 old guys on a bench. They've been there for hours. 2 old men, not a word, you know. And finally, one old guy gets up. You know how it takes years for an old man to unravel. And he starts to walk away, and the other guy says, where are you running? The 2 old guys in a hot tub. One says, I'll bet I can guess your age. You wouldn't guess my age. I'm an old man. I'm older than you. He says, I'll bet I'll guess your age, and I'll bet you $100 I can guess your age on the nose. You can guess my age on the nose, $100, you got to bet. How old am I? He looks, he says, stand up out of the water. But it's all cold. I'll get all wrinkled. You're wrinkled already. Get up. He says, I tell the age by the wrinkles around the body, like a tree. Stand up. And the old guy slaps it. He stands up, and the other guy goes, you're 93. He says, 93? That's exact. How did you know? He says, you told me yesterday. The 2 little ladies, the dear ladies, as Myron Cohn would say, dear sweet little grandmothers, and they're saying, why don't we streak? What do you mean streak? We'll run naked. Fast. Why do we run fast? So nobody will see us. So why should we get naked? Don't ask questions, do it. See them two men, we'll get them all hot. All right, so they get naked and they run past the two old guys. And the old guys say, you see that, Harry? He says, yeah, it needs ironing. Here's my favorite. This is a brand new one. You won't enjoy this till I finish it, but it's adorable. This couple, and the old man's going to go out for a walk, so the wife says, Saul, when you go out, bring me back a banana split. All right, I'll remember. No, you better write it down. I want a banana split. Go to Haagen-Dazs. Bring me 3 balls ice cream. I want kumquat. I want cappuccino and a purple grape, and I want 2 bananas with plenty of strawberries and whipped cream. Write it down. You'll forget you're an old man. You're senile. I wouldn't forget. What am I, dead? I'll remember. Banana split, 2 bananas, 3 balls ice cream. I'll remember. Write it down. You'll forget. I wouldn't forget. I wouldn't forget. And he goes out. He comes back an hour later with a bag of bagels. She says, see, you forgot. He says, forgot what? The cream cheese. Mommy, the sun shines east, the sun shines west, but I know where the sun shines best. Oh, Mammy, my little Mammy, my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mommy, I'm coming. I hope I didn't make you wait. No, Mammy, you know I'm coming. I hope and pray I'm not too late. I'm singing. Mammy, oh my little Mammy, I'd walk 1,000,000 miles for one of those smiles, my Mammy.
Hey, guys, this has been a program for 60 Minutes, as you fellas know, called Comedy Room, and it's a cliche to say, I don't know where the time is going, but I really don't. It's felt like about 20 minutes. All 4 of you are brilliantly funny, never more so than today, and we are honored, as Joe said, by your presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you.